With all the interest in clean tech right now, it kind of strikes me as very similar to the tech industry about a decade ago and biotech industry a while back, and both of those kind of the luster wore off the vine. Andy, you mentioned that this sector has the added element that there's very little in the way of entry barriers for a lot of companies that come in here, and it's my observation a lot of folks are very well-intentioned. I'd like to ask the folks with a business bent on the panel that the business, of course, requires a lot of things, thinking big, thinking small, developing, planning, a lot of things that may hit entrepreneurs and people in this, with an interest in this sector, kind of with a dash of cold, hard reality. Is there any lesson learned you'd like to offer to people who are interested or investing or supporting this industry that will help avoid some of the mistakes that people have made in other industries?
Well, I think it goes back to what's been said already is you're really investing in a team. It's all about people, and it's all about how they develop their people as they add people into an organization. It doesn't really matter what business you're in. And you also have to have management that's looking far enough out that they can actually, develop an organization around what is going to happen, but also, very cognizant of making things work today. So, I think the lessons are age-long, throughout human history. Develop your people. Make people be a very, very high priority. They're the ones that ultimately produce your product and sell your product and are the key drivers for your business. They'll be the ones maybe that will figure out what's next for your company, or will know what adjustments to make to your product or your company's strategy to make it work. So get great people and believe in them and develop them.
Yeah, I think clean tech companies are very much just like any other businesses that are out there. I think the fundamental difference, and why I think this is different from biotech and the internet and so forth, the fundamental difference is that people find themselves just noticing problems, and they get concerned about their future and their children, and how is this world going to end up in 10, 15, 20 years? And I think so for the first time you just find average people who may not even have you ever thought about building a business thinking, how can I solve this problem that I have right in front of me here? And when you are in that position, I think you want to shoot for the stars as much as you can. But the problem that I've noticed is that if you are just having a dream, you still have to deal with the rules and the system. And the system right now is still very much what it used to be over the last few decades. And that means that it's very difficult to attract capital and good people, and therefore very difficult to scale and ultimately become a successful company. So there's a lot more passion, I think, than there is in other industries, and that creates a lot more entrepreneurial spirit than I have seen in a long time. Our deal flow in the clean tech field predominantly, I'd say comes from people who have just brilliant ideas, but who may have never built a business before. So times are changing in that regard.
And I think there are reasons to be optimistic. In spite of all the doom and gloom, look, if you're starting a business, there's plenty of space. Cheap. Talent is available. In spite of the fact that there is a dearth of private investment, you've got governments from city to state to the federal government now that's lining up to inject massive amounts of money into infrastructure and specifically into energy and clean tech kinds of businesses. So, this has a lot of elements to be really optimistic and attractive to starting something.
I would just, getting back to the analogy to the internet mass die-off of 10 years ago, time really flies, but, put very quickly, conserve cash, and before you invest in yourself or your own business or somebody else's business, take a very hard look at it, make sure it has a true competitive advantage, because then otherwise you risk losing your investment.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for coming, and I want to make one comment in closing, and it's less about the business, less about, the space, and it's more about individual sort of goals, individual tenacity, sort of the human potential, and really when it comes down to it, everybody here has a dream, I'm sure. Some of you have embarked upon it, some of you haven't. Clearly, the green space is the common denominator. And the only thing I can say is that you really have to pitch your tent. When it really comes down to whether it's a service-based business, whether it's something that is fungible, whether it's something that can be monetized or capitalized very easily, find your passion, find what you really believe in, pitch your tent, and hang in there. This isn't for the faint of heart, and there's really no room for dilettantes. So that's my recommendation. Pitch your tent and claim it. Okay? Thanks.
Awesome.